Good morning, one and all. Good morning, Shahin ma'am. Today, we again have Dr. Shahin Farzana ma'am. Yesterday, we have got overwhelming response from our participants about your lecture, ma'am. We have got very nice feedback in the afternoon session for your lecture. And today, we look forward to you. Today, we have two sessions. First two sessions by Shahin ma'am. 10 to 11:30 session goes on univariate, bivariate, and multivariate analysis. And the second session from 11:40 to 1:10 goes on basic theoretical concepts of supervised and unsupervised learning techniques. These are the first two sessions, the free lunch sessions. And for the participants, the attendance link will be shared for the morning session at 11:30. Please note the attendance link will be shared for the morning session at 11:30. And the afternoon session, it will be shared at 2:30. The attendance link. Welcome, ma'am. You can carry on.
Thank you, Mrs. Shweta. Right. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Thank you. Quickly, let me review what we have done in the last session so that because it's a continuation of what we have done in the last session, it will be easy for us to comprehend what we intend to do today. Yesterday, we just try to understand whenever we take up research work, what are the major components that are involved. We understood that whenever we take up a research, it is not about literature review alone, where you look at others' models and present it in your paper, but equally it is important that we have to develop our model and then draw hypothesis, draw interpretation from the model that you develop on your data. Now, having said so, we also have to understand the fact that whenever we mean to say developing a model, there are four basic activities that we consider during our research work. One, we start with data collection. The data that we are collecting could also be secondary data or could be primary data source as well. If at all you ask recommendation, should it be primary or could it also be secondary? Personally, I can always suggest that it should be a combination of both so that you come up with concrete analysis and concrete interpretations. Now, having understood that the first activity of any research work involves collecting data, then we want to draw some understanding about the data further. If you want to draw further understanding, then we move to the second activity, that is organizing data. There are two ways in which you could organize data, one in the form of tables, the second one in the form of graphs. When we talk about organizing the data in the form of tables, there are four basic tables that we can use whenever we work with a data set. The four tables include simple frequency distribution, relative frequency distribution, cumulative frequency distribution, and contingency tables. When we have only tabulation of qualitative data, we will refer to it as frequency table. Rather, we want to organize quantitative data, then we refer to it as a frequency distribution. Now we discussed about what are the pros and cons of each of these distributions. Simple frequency distribution just only places the number of times a response is received for a particular class interval. Then when we talk about relative frequency distribution, we want to convert the frequency that is observed into percentage against the total responses recorded. Then cumulative frequency distribution is used in a case wherein you want to sum up all the values above a frequency or below a class frequency or a class interval. In such a case, we use cumulative frequency distribution. Rather, most of our research work is binded with simple frequency and relative frequency. This only provides preliminary investigation of the data. Solely based on these distributions, you cannot consider that your paper is complete. Having discussed this, we moved on to the third activity that is associated with any research study, that is analysis of data. Now, this analysis of data will enable you and me in providing more insights about our business issue or the academic problem that we have considered. There are, whenever you want to analyze the data, the first question that you should ask yourself is, how many variables do you have in your data set, and how many variables do you wish to analyze at the current moment of time? Now, if at all I have a single variable to analyze, then you make use of univariate techniques of statistics. If you have two variables, then you use bivariate statistical techniques. If you have more than two variables, then we use multivariate statistical techniques. When we talk about univariate statistical techniques, because we limited our understanding only to univariate statistical techniques yesterday. When we talk about that, there are four different ways in which you could interpret the data, or rather I would say analyze the data. If at all you want to look at the data that is located exactly at the center of the distribution, then you would use measures of central tendency. No, I am not interested only in looking at the data that is located at the center of the distribution. Rather, I am interested in knowing how is the data varying under the distribution, and how is it dispersing from the central value, which is technically termed as pivot value. If you wish to understand that, then you would use measures of dispersion. Going further, we have a concrete condition or a prerequisite or a precondition that is to be satisfied in order to apply measures of central tendency or measures of dispersion. Or rather, many of the tests that we would be discussing today are referred to as parametric tests, have a precondition stating that it could be applied only when the distribution is normal oblique symmetric. What is normal? We will be discussing in a few minutes from now. Symmetric, as you know, what it does is, the distribution is when you draw a straight line from the peak of the distribution to the horizontal axis, you find that the distribution is exactly divided into two halves. Such a distribution is referred to as normal distribution. Unless the distribution is symmetric, you would not be able to apply measures of central tendency and dispersion. Now your question arises, how do I measure whether the distribution is symmetric or not? In order to measure, there are two different, in order to find out whether the distribution is symmetric or not, there are two measures available in statistics. One is measures of skewness, and the second one is measures of kurtosis. What is meant by, what is the difference existing between them? Measures of skewness not only indicates whether the distribution is symmetric or asymmetric, it also indicates where is the peak tending to. Is it tending towards left? If the peak is tending towards left, you call it as positively skewed distribution. If the peak is tending towards right, you call it as negatively skewed distribution. Right, fine. Now, why do we use kurtosis then? Kurtosis is basically a method that will only indicate about your distribution being symmetric or asymmetric. It does not talk about which end is it meeting. It rather indicates one more thing, how the variability of data is. Is it concentrated or is it distributed throughout the distribution? So these are the strengths of each of the measures that we have discussed yesterday. Today, we will continue with what are the techniques that you have in each of the four measures of univariate analysis. Right, this is exactly the first agenda for the day. The second agenda that we have is, what are the different types of bivariate and multivariate statistical tools that are used in order to analyze the data? In order to understand this, yesterday I have introduced a term called as descriptive analysis. Similarly, you were also exposed to one more term referred to as inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics is applicable when you are working with data that is already existing. But in the present scenario, we are not interested, or rather, much of our interest lies not only in understanding the current available data, it is also extended to predict what do you see or how do you see the business in future. So basically, it is to do with prediction. In such a case, we will have to apply predictive analytics or predictive statistics or inferential statistics. Today, we will look at that part of it. Now, the third agenda for the day would be, we will also try to look at how these terms, descriptive statistics and inferential statistics, take a different dimension with the current technology. That means now, whatever methods that you have been studying or you are aware of or you are exposed to under the gamut of descriptive statistics and inferential statistics have been given a new name, with machine learning and deep learning existing. The names given to these techniques are supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So today we will look at what these three techniques talk about and what is the significance of these techniques and what is the difference existing between each of these techniques. How do we use it in our research? That is going to be the next agenda. Now, again, it is equally important for us to know few of the multivariate techniques. So today we will try to understand how do we look at correlation, because my general understanding while I work with research scholars is that they do know how to apply correlation. They are aware of how to apply regression, because it is only that you need to click a button on SPSS screen and it automatically generates output for you. But that's not enough. Ultimately, the last activity of any research is important, that is interpretation. When we start interpreting the data, there are so many errors which are extremely misleading. So today we will try to understand how do we interpret the data given the current software availability of SPSS. We will also try to understand what are the other dimensions that could be used in order to assess the data. Though not currently available with SPSS in its full mode, definitely it will appear in the upcoming versions. So we will also look at how to look at those parameters if they appear in future. So this is how I have modulated my session for the day. Right, I take a pause. If you have any queries pertaining to whatever I have discussed till now, I will quickly take up those queries and then probably we will continue with the session. Do I assume that you do not have any queries in that case? Ma'am, what is pivot value? Yes, I'll be answering that. I'll be answering that. Right, perfect. Right, before I answer that, I just wanted to show you a screen. By the end of the day, I'll be sharing one data set with you, and this is a data set which has been a much spoken data set with regard to analysis, because this is huge data, and when you analyze this data, trust me, you would understand every concept of statistics, every concept of research. So I will be sharing this data set with you, and these are the few questions. If time permits, I would want you to go through these questions and evaluate it using SPSS, and probably you can submit it to your organizers. My observations through evaluation of these 7 questions that I have given has already been presented in this slide. You can counter check these values after you execute it. This was all associated with your previous session, so I would leave this data set with sir. Right. Let me quickly answer the question that our friend has asked us. Just give me a minute. I'll just complete that, and then probably I'll come back to this current session. What is pivot value? All right. Yeah. I hope all of you are able to look at the whiteboard. Right. Now, please kindly look at the screen. What is pivot value? Generally, whenever we are trying to look at any business scenario, the distribution is considered to be symmetric, or we assume that to be symmetric. Okay, now let me give you a very quick example. There is a company which is into manufacturing water bottles, mineral water bottles. Okay, and it says that each mineral water bottle should have 950 ml of water, not exactly 1 liter, but 950 ml of water. Okay, any deviation, that means anything less than 950 or anything greater than 950 will categorize the water bottle as a defective product. If it is exactly 950 ml, it will be referred to as effective product. Okay, at any given point of time, on any given working day, the number of water bottles manufactured by this particular company is 500. Now, amongst the 500 water bottles manufactured, I think you agree to the fact that you would have both effective water bottles as well as defective water bottles. And in this particular graph, you have just depicted the defective rate. You have just depicted the defective rate for the month of August 2020. Okay, now in this case, we understand that the defective rate for the month of August 2020 has been lying between 100 and 175, has been lying between 100 and 175. If I am drawing the line from the peak to the x-axis horizontally, the value that you find on x-axis from the peak is referred to as pivot value, or it is also referred to as pivot value. It is how you pronounce. Right? So this is all about pivot value. When I talk about measures of central tendency, when I talk about measures of central tendency, what am I trying to examine? I am trying to examine what is the value that is located at the center of distribution. If you want to understand that, then you would use measures of central tendency. Under measures of central tendency technique, we have basically 5 tools in statistics. Under measures of central tendency, that means if you want to measure the data that is located at the center of distribution, or you want to capture pivot value of a business situation, then there are 5 methods. What are those 5 methods? It seems the 5 methods are arithmetic mean, then you have median, mode, geometric mean, and harmonic mean. These are the 5 methods that are available in order to measure the data that is located at the center of the distribution. Now, I'm sure you have a question for me. Why do we need 5 methods if you are only trying to measure the data located at the center? Does it have any significance and relevance? Okay, and which is the best method? That is very, very important for us to understand. Under measures of central tendency, the best method is arithmetic mean. I repeat, under measures of central tendency, the best method is arithmetic mean, followed by median. I am sure you have a question for me. Why do you say that arithmetic mean is the best measure? Because assume that I have values 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 defective pieces being manufactured. on 5 days of a week, 5 working days of a week, if I wish to find out on an average, how is the defective rate? If I want to find out that, what will you do? It seems 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40 plus 50 divided by totally how many days do we have? 5 days. Hence, I am considering all the observations whenever I am applying this formula. Hence, this measure, which considers all the observations to arrive at an outcome, is the best measure, and arithmetic mean does it. So henceforth, it is referred to as the best measure of central tendency. Now, having said so, I'm sure you have a question for me. Do you mean to say that can we consider pivot value as one of the measures of central tendency? Yes, as I've spoken, it is used. A pivot value will be an indicator based on which we will be using measures of central tendency and dispersion as well. Right, now continuing from there, as you find arithmetic mean to be the best measure for central tendency, you have a question, does it not have any limitation? It does have a limitation. Please see here, actually the value that I intended to enter was 50, but I had a phone call while I was entering the value and I had entered extra 3 zeros. Extra 3 zeros. Do you think that if I calculate the average, there will be difference in its value? If I calculate the average, will there be a difference in its value? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to answer.
Yes,
Will there be a difference? Please see here. If I am considering that 50,000 here, the value of average that you receive is 10020. How many defective pieces on an average do you find, it seems, in a given week? 10,020. Only for the mistake that you have made, you have entered extra 3 zeros, because of which there is huge difference in the mean. Actual mean is 30, but when I use this observation, the value of the defective rate is 10,020. That means that the limitation of arithmetic mean is it is extremely sensitive to outlier values. It is extremely sensitive to outlier values. So when you want to perform descriptive analysis, which I was showing you yesterday, that is arithmetic mean, please ensure that your data does not have any outlier values. If at all you have outlier values, you are able to clearly see here the outcome that you intend to the outcome that you see. There is a huge difference which will lead to incorrect results. Now, let us go ahead with the next measure of central tendency. The next, what mean is affected by extreme? Right. What is outlier value? That's exactly what I was referring to here. The number of defective pieces that are manufactured by a particular machine on 5 working days of a week has been 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. While I was entering these values, I received a call, and instead of entering 50, I entered 50,000. Definitely this value is differing from the rest of the observations that you have recorded. Hence, this value will be referred to as outlier value. Any value that deviates significantly from the rest of the data items in your data set, then such a value is referred to as outlier value. Have I answered? Yeah, thank you. All right, perfect. Now we move on to the next measure. The next measure that we have is median. What does median do? What does it indicate? Uh, Now you consider the same set 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Median value, if you need to calculate, you will select the central value, means 30 will be your response. 30 will be the response or outcome. Now, can you tell me, is it a best method in comparison to arithmetic mean? Yes or no? Is arithmetic mean a better measure or median a better measure? Very good. Mean is a better measure. Arithmetic mean is better than median. I have already clearly indicated. The reason for arithmetic mean being better measure is you have considered all the data items. But whereas in the case of median, I am not including all the data items. I am only including the data that is located at the center of the distribution. Right. Now let's try to understand what mode is. Mode as such is applicable both for qualitative data as well as quantitative data. Rather, we refer to it as numeric data and categorical data. Okay, I have a question for you. Can I apply, because I'm just trying to understand the customer satisfaction of 5 customers. The first customer is extremely satisfied. The second customer is not satisfied. The third customer is extremely satisfied. The fourth customer is dissatisfied. The fifth customer is also not satisfied. Can you tell me what is the mean of this? Can you tell me what is the mean of this? Mean. I'm talking about arithmetic mean, please. We cannot calculate arithmetic mean. Arithmetic mean and median are applicable to numeric data set or numeric values, whereas mode is applicable both to numeric as well as categorical values. Now, what is mode here? Any observation that is repeated maximum number of times, that observation will be returned as mode. As you are able to see, ES is repeated twice, and we are also able to see NS is repeated twice. Hence, the mode of this data set is ES and NS. Okay, you have a question for me. Now, what does this mean? What should I write in my interpretation if I get 2 values? Please understand, you may have mode leading to a single outcome, mode which may lead to 2 outcomes, or mode which may have more than 2 outcomes. If you have a single mode, assume that you do not have NS. Now, what will be your mode? Your mode will be only ES. Hence, it is to be inferred as unimodal distribution. It is to be inferred as that the distribution for the current variable called as customer satisfaction is unimodal. Now, considering the last variable, how many modes do we have? We have 2 modes. Hence, it should be referred to as bimodal distribution. So, what will be your interpretation now? Customer satisfaction variable follows bimodal distribution. Assume that you also have one more S. Assume that you also have one more S. So how many modes are we able to see here? More than 2. Hence, it is referred to be a multimodal distribution. And that is how exactly you should be interpreting it. Have I made sense till here? Right. Now,
Yes, yes,
we,
yes.
thank you. Now we move on to the next two measures of central tendency. The first one is a geometric mean and the next one is harmonic mean. Where do we use these methods? Because we rarely hear about it, right? These methods are used when your data is given as ratios or when your data is presented as percentages or when your data is given as growth rates. In any of these cases, you will use geometric mean or harmonic mean. When the data is given as ratios, percentages or growth rate, if you apply arithmetic mean, median or mode, it will lead to misleading results. It will lead to misleading outcome. So please always remember, I am summarizing measures of central tendency now. Measures of central tendency is used to capture the data that is located at the center of the distribution, or you are trying to capture pivot value. Now, when I am trying to capture pivot value, there are 5 methods basically available. The first method is arithmetic mean, which is the best measure of central tendency because it considers all the data values. Sorry. Bhavya, can you please kindly put your microphone on mute because it is disturbing us? Bhavya, I request you to kindly put your, yeah, thank you. Right. So arithmetic mean is the best measure that we have for measures of central tendency, but it also has a limitation. What is the limitation? When you have the presence of outlier values, it is recommended highly in research study that first you remove the outlier values, then apply arithmetic mean. No, you still apply in the presence of outlier values, then it leads to misleading results. Then the next best measure that you have for central tendency is mean. But the limitation of this method is that it does not get affected because of outlier values, but it does not consider all the values. Hence, it is not the best method, but only the second best method. Both mean and median are applicable to numeric data, whereas mode can be applied to both numeric data as well as categorical data. Numeric refers to quantitative data and categorical refers to qualitative data. Geometric mean and harmonic mean are specific, specialized measures applicable only if the data is presented as ratios, percentages, or growth rates. When the data is presented as ratios, percentages, or growth rate, you should not be using mean, median, mode. If you do use it, then the results are misleading. That's it for measures of central tendency. If you have any queries, you can quickly post it in your chat window. I will answer them. Otherwise, we will continue with the next measure. Okay, perfect. I assume that you have understood till here. Then I'll continue with the next measure of central tendency. Please remember, next measure. Please remember the best measures of central tendency are arithmetic mean followed by median. Now we continue with the next measure. The next measure is measures of dispersion. The next method for univariate analysis is measures of dispersion. Again, under measures of dispersion, we have 5 tools. The first one is range. The second one is quartile deviation. The third one is mean deviation. The fourth one is variance. And the fifth one is standard deviation. There are 5 techniques used, or sorry, 5 tools used in order to measure the data that is dispersing from the pivot value. The data that is dispersing from the pivot value. At that, the apply methods of dispersion. What is the first method that we have? The first method that we have is range. What does range indicate? As I've given you in the example earlier, 100 to 175 defective products have been manufactured in this company for the month of August 2020. Now, as is visible on your screen, I am interested in minimum value and I am interested in maximum value. Then, which method would you apply? It seems you would apply range. You are only interested in minimum value and maximum value, then you would apply range. But is it a best measure? It is not a best measure for the fact that it is only considering 2 values. But totally, how many values do we have? For August month, we have 31 days. Out of 31 days, we are only using 2 values. Hence, it is not a best measure. Now, we will look at the next measure of dispersion, that is quartile deviation. Where do we use quartile deviation? Quartile deviation is used in a case wherein you want to study 50% of the distribution. You do not want to study the entire distribution. You only want to study 50% of the distribution. In that case, we use quartile deviation. I am sure you have a question for me. Can you give me one example? Basically, here we are looking at income levels. We are looking at income levels. At the lower part of your distribution, you have low income groups. At the upper part of the distribution, you have high income groups. At the middle, you have middle income groups. Okay, and to whom do you want to sell your product? You are interested to sell your product only to middle income groups. Now, I need your suggestion. Do I study the entire distribution, or is it enough if I limit my study only to middle income group? I would want you to kindly respond on the chat window, please. Okay, so henceforth, in such cases, when you want to study only the middle income group, what method do you recommend? Range cannot be applied because it only talks about extreme values, that is minimum and maximum. It does not talk about central values. So hence, in that case, we would apply quartile deviation. Right. Now, I would answer Murthy Garu. He has written, if the data is mix of ratios, numeric and categorical, then what should be done? Okay. Please remember, whenever we have data, it is not enough just merely analyzing the data. First step is you have to ensure that your data is cleansed. What do I mean by cleansed data? You have to ensure that when I talk about income levels of IBM employees, I'm just taking an example, income levels of IBM employees. Please let us remember, IBM is not a company that is having its office only in India. It also has its operations in the other parts of the globe. Then you thoroughly understand that the currency for each of this will vary. When I want to find out average income, directly I cannot apply arithmetic mean on the column income. What I have to do? First of all, I have to standardize all the values. First of all, I have to standardize all the values. Standardizing the values is referred to as data cleansing. Only after that you can apply. The same is the answer to you also, Murthy Saab. You have to first cleanse your data, get all the data onto one scale, standardize your variable, then you can apply the methods that we have been discussing till now. Now again, what is the limitation that you have with quartile deviation? Please remember, we are again only limiting our understanding to 50% of the data. The 25% on left and the 25% on the right we are not studying. Hence, it also could not be a best measure. I hope I have made sense till here. I'll continue. Then the next measure of dispersion that you have is mean deviation. In mean deviation, please let's not bother about the formulas that I am presenting here. It is only for our understanding. You are not intended to learn these formulas because you are not students, you are research scholars. But to understand the concept, it becomes essential for me to write this formula. Right. When I am talking about mean deviation, the formula in the numerator goes like this. Sigma mod x minus x bar. Sigma mod x minus x bar. Okay, as I have told you, the defective pieces manufactured for the month of August 2020 has been between 100 and 175. Now assume that the average value for 100 and 175 is, let me just check, is 137.5. So we will take it as 138. Okay, so you are aware of the fact that you will have some values on the left, you will have some values on the right. Greater values than 138 will be placed on the right side. Lesser values than 138 will be placed on left side. Okay, now please listen to me. Okay, if the average defective rate is 138 and if the average defective rate is 138 and you are recording 139 defective pieces on a day, is it good or bad? 138 is the average defective rate. Very good. It is obviously bad. 137 please, or 130 please. Is it good or bad? It is good, very good, because it is lesser than our threshold value. Pivot value is our threshold value and it is lesser than the threshold value. So you said it is good. Now please listen to me. Actually, in my pocket in the morning today, I had 100 rupees. I just went out to pick up vegetables. I took tomatoes. It was 70 rupees per kg. I am only giving you an assumption. Actually, I did not go out, but only I am giving you an assumption. I took tomatoes. I bought tomatoes. It is 70 rupees. Then I took leafy vegetables. It is 40 rupees. Okay, because I knew that person. He told me, Madam, kuch nahi hoga. You come back and give me tomorrow the remaining 10 rupees. Now, can you tell me how much money do I have in my pocket? Can you tell me after spending this amount in the morning, how much amount do I have in my pocket? Right. Lucky Mishra ji, you made a right observation. How much money do I have in a pocket? Actually 0, but I am also carrying a debt with me. Debt of how many rupees? -10. Please enter this -10 in the formula. When I'm entering minus 10 in the formula, what does it convert it to? What does it convert it to? Minus 10 is put in absolute. Minus 10 automatically gets converted to 10. What happens in mean deviation is, actually, I am making a loss of 10 rupees after the purchase, but mean deviation is showing it as profit on evaluation, and that is the limitation that you have with mean deviation. In mean deviation, the formula on the numerator says sigma x minus x bar mod, which converts a negative value to a positive value, because of which in SPSS, whenever you want to calculate measures of dispersion, it does not give you mean deviation, quartile deviation, or range. It rather gives you standard deviation. Why? We will be discussing that as well. I hope it is clear till here. I'll continue further. Then what is the next measure that you have? The next measure that we have is variance. The next measure that we have is variance. And the formula for variance is given by sigma x minus x bar whole square in the numerator. Don't bother about the denominator. Don't bother about denominator. In the numerator, it is sigma x minus x bar whole square. Now, please let us take the same issue, whatever I have discussed about my shopping in the morning with regard to vegetables. Now, minus 10 whole square, it will give me 100. There's no problem with that. But I am talking about currency. Hence, what have I written? I have written rupees minus 10 whole square. I need help from you in this regard now. Can you tell me what does rupees whole square lead to? What is the outcome of rupees whole square? I am sure if I ask you minus 10 whole square, you will respond it is 100. But can you tell me how much is the value of rupees whole square? Please. Anyone here? Rupees whole square. Yeah, minus 10 whole square is definitely 100. But can you tell me what is rupees whole square? Right. Hello, Dr. Shaheen. We do know how to find out standard units of scale, but rupees whole square, to the understanding that I have, it is undefined. Rupees whole square, rupees whole cube, rupees to the power 4, anything is rupees is what I understand. If you are still insisting rupees whole square is equal to rupees square, then I think it is leading to a measurement which is undefined. It is leading to a measurement that is undefined. So the limitation of variance is that it considers all the values. It considers all the values. But the limitation is whenever you are varying the scale of measurement, it leads to misleading outcomes. What misleading outcomes? It seems mathematically misleading outcomes. As I have presented here, rupees whole square is leading to an answer rupees square, which is not mathematically acceptable. Hence, variance is a method which is recommended only when you are not considering its measurement unit of the data item. If it is not considered, then you would be using variance. The second best measure that we have for dispersion is variance, and the first best measure that you have is standard deviation. Let me continue further. Now, what is standard deviation? Standard deviation has the same formula but with a small change. Instead of variance, it is square root of variance. Variance is denoted by sigma square or s square. If you are writing s square, the denominator will be n minus 1. If you are writing sigma square, the denominator will be capital N. Okay. If you are taking sigma square or s square root, then it is referred to as standard deviation, which is sigma or S. Sigma, when you are writing, it will be capital N. If you are writing S, it will be small n, which is only trying to tell that it is population standard deviation and sample standard deviation. Let's not get into those details at this point of time. Okay, so when I am adding a square root, can you tell me, is it giving me a standard unit of measurement? Yes. And is it also solving my problem? Yes. Hence, the best measure of dispersion that is available in statistics is standard deviation, initially followed by variance. Let me quickly pause and then take questions if there are any. Please guide for acceptable value for stat. I would be doing that. Vinod sir, I'll be doing that. Just give me a few minutes. Yeah, thank you. Right. Do I assume that you have understood till here then? Right. Let's continue further. We have already discussed about measures of central tendency. We discussed about measures of dispersion. Now we will talk about, right, perfect. We will talk about measures of skewness and kurtosis. I think yesterday I've already discussed it with you. Measures of skewness value, if it is 0, you say it is perfect symmetric distribution. If it is lying between minus 0.5 and plus 0.5, we say that it is a fairly symmetric distribution. Discarding 0, because if it is 0, it is perfect symmetric. If it is lying between -1 and +1, with -0.5 and +0.5, in this case, you are calling it as moderately skewed. And the next case that we discussed was if it is less than -1 or greater than +1, we said that it is highly skewed. Reminding of the point again, only if your value of skewness is lying between -0.5 and 0.5, only then you can apply measures of central tendency and dispersion, whatever we have discussed earlier. If at all the values are indicating moderate skewness or high skewness, then it is mandatory that you have to first ensure that your distribution is normal. Then you apply any of the descriptive statistics that we have presented under measures of central tendency or dispersion. Right. Quickly, let me take any questions. You want me to repeat variance? Perfect. Is it necessary to check variance if I got the standard deviation? Definitely not. It depends on what value are you looking at. It depends on what type of test do you wish to undertake in future. Depending upon that, we will use variance or standard deviation. But for the first choice, it should be standard deviation. Right. Can you also repeat variance? Yes, I'll just take a minute more and then explain you variance. Okay. What is variance? In variance, we are just trying to understand variance given by sigma square or S square. I am only referring to sample variance. S square is equal to sigma x minus x bar whole square divided by n minus 1. The average number of defective pieces measured is 138, while the minimum value has been 100 and the maximum value has been 175. All the value 138 will be your x bar. All the values that are below are x and above 138 will be referred to as xi. What are we doing in variance? X minus X bar, that is 100 minus 138 whole square plus, because it is sigma, then plus, assume that the next value that you find here is 120. So it would be 120 minus 138 whole square plus, like this you will calculate, divided by total number of days, that is 31 days in August, minus 1, that is equal to 30. What are we trying to understand? How is the variance of this value from the pivot value? How is the variance of 120 from the pivot value? So every time from this particular value, you will compare it with all the observations or data items that you have included. So this is all about variance. What I was mentioning it to you in the example is, when the formula says sigma x minus x bar whole square, in the example that I have given, x minus x bar whole square value was minus 10 whole square, because I have a loss of, or I have a debt of 10 rupees from the shopping that I made today, from the purchases that I made today. And the unit of measurement for Indian currency is rupees. Now, please kindly tell me, what is minus 10 whole square? I think minus 10 whole square we will be able to answer very clearly. It is 100. But you have a unit also present. What is the unit in which you have measured? Rupees square. Now, can you tell me what does rupees square indicate? Can you tell me what is its unit? I do not know. I only know that rupees, you do anything, square, cube, do anything, it is rupees only. Then I say, no, 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 this answer is not acceptable to me, for the fact that when I'm squaring minus 10, you said 100. So the same way, when I'm squaring rupees, it should also give me some new value. It cannot be rupees. Means the problem with variance is, if I'm considering it to be rupees square, then it gives me mathematically unacceptable values, undefined scale of measurement. Hence, variance measure cannot be used, cannot be built on your data if at all you are giving priority to your measurement unit. Have I made sense to you, Mrs. Ramya? Right, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, this is all about univariate analysis. Quickly, let me take up any queries if you have, so that we can continue further. Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I would be doing so. I would be talking about standard deviation and everything while I deal with regression. I'll be showing you that. You need to give me 1 more hour so that I can answer your question, Sharif Saab. Thank you. Right. So I assume that we are done with univariate analysis. Right. So we will continue with the next part of it, that is bivariate and multivariate analysis. What is bivariate analysis? What is multivariate analysis is what we intend to target now. In this, we will discuss, because I think I just told you earlier that there are 2 different types of analysis, as indicated in statistics. One is descriptive and the other one is inferential. Now, that analysis has been further categorized into 5. Today, we will look at what are those 5 analyses that you and me could carry out during our research study. Please do understand, we cannot be obsolete any further. It is extremely important for us to break to the requirement of technology in the market now. So henceforth, we will discuss about what are the different types of analytical techniques, as I was indicating earlier. We will also discuss in this only what is supervised, what is unsupervised, and a new technique that is added, that is what is that technique, a new technique that we have added, and how does it help us in our research work called as reinforcement learning. We will look at that aspect also. Then the second part of this discussion goes as what are the various multivariate methods that are available, and today we will look at primarily 2 of them which most of us do use in our research analysis. The first one is how do you perform diagnostic analysis, and the statistical tool used in order to perform that is correlation. Then we will also look at one of the predictive analysis tools, that is regression. We will look at both simple and multiple linear regression. As I've told you, as I've discussed with you earlier, SPSS has limited output as of now, but they are adding lots of components with other contemporary software tools existing in the market. So we will also discuss how to interpret those parameters, which will definitely appear in your SPSS in very, very short time. Already it has started. Right, now let's start off. What are the various type of analytical techniques? Whatever we put forth earlier as descriptive analysis and inferential analysis, today what are those referred to as? Basically, we refer to those techniques by 5 different names today: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and the last one is cognitive, which is based on the technology of artificial intelligence. I repeat once again, the analysis that we refer to today is broadly classified into 5: descriptive analysis, diagnostic analysis, predictive analysis, prescriptive analysis, and the last is cognitive analysis. Okay, now what is meant by descriptive analysis? What does it basically answer about the data? What happened? Kya hua? If you want to answer that, then you would apply descriptive analysis. What does descriptive analysis do? As I was mentioning earlier, it only gives you basic understanding of the data set. It does not give you any business insights. I am sure you are able to view that on your screen. I repeat once again, descriptive analysis only gives you the basic understanding of the data. It does not give you any business insights. Then we talk about the next one. The next one is it's audible, right? The next one is diagnostic analysis. What is diagnostic analysis? Why did it happen? Why did it happen? If we want to understand, if we are able to answer that question, then it gives you little insights about the business situation. Okay. Why did it happen that the prices of grocery items are increasing? Answer is simple: Corona, Okay, so what is that we have done? We have done what if analysis or root cause analysis. It is only giving us few insights. What is the insight that it has given? Maybe because of corona and limited accessibility to the resources, the prices of grocery commodities have increased. What is the reason? Further analysis of it is required. So preliminary insights, if you are interested, then you would apply diagnostic analysis. I'll go further. The third type of analysis that you have is predictive analysis. What does it answer? It answers what will happen. Okay, now let me answer this question again to you. What will happen if corona continues till 2021 March? What will happen if corona continues till 2021 March? And how will be the prices of tomatoes in March 2021? That means I am not only trying to understand what has happened, I am also trying to predict or forecast how the tomatoes price will be for March 2021. Hence, predictive analysis is used for forecasting. And as I have referred, it primarily in today's session, we will look at only one tool called as, regression. Right. Now, what does predictive analysis do? It gives further insights about your data. It gives further insights about your data. Okay, now let us move further. What is this fourth type of analysis that is conducted in today's research? Prescriptive analysis. Okay, what is said, if the same corona persists till March 2021, tomato prices are going to touch 300 rupees per kg. I am only assuming. Please kindly bear with me. Right. Assume that the tomato prices are going to increase to 300 rupees. Now, this is the prediction given by data scientists like you and me to the government of India. Then immediately government of India, you have raised an alarm to government of India. You know it is an essential commodity or an essential vegetable in our domestic life. So immediately government of India comes up with a solution. Okay, what does it say? Okay, let us give away these tomatoes in March 2021 at a discounted price in all the supermarkets, both in all the supermarkets. Okay, that is one action. The other decision that the government has come up is, okay, let us give tomatoes not to all the citizens, but only to BPL families, below poverty line families, okay, at their respective ration shops. Whoever holds a white ration card, they should be given access to these tomatoes at a discounted price. The third is the case wherein the same decision has been taken, but not a discounted price that they want to give. They want it to be given at 5 rupees only, irrespective of whatever be the raise in the price. Okay, so what is it doing? Prescriptive analysis. Prescriptive analysis is able to build on the 3 decisions. What are the 3 decisions? Give tomatoes to all the citizens living in India at discounted price. It can be made available at all the supermarkets. 2, make it available only to BPL families at discounted price at ration shops. 3, make it available to BPL families with white ration card at free of cost. From these three decisions that it has given, you have not built that three decisions. Whatever the model that you would be using in the prescriptive analysis, that model has given you these three alternatives. From that model, Government of India will select one of the actions. So it is also giving you an idea about which action is going to be a cheaper one for Government of India. So prescriptive analysis not only gives insights, but it gives you the alternative courses of action, and also it suggests the best action available. Okay, so immediately you have a question for me. What is the tool that enables you to perform the prescriptive analysis? I'm sure most of you have already worked on these tools like decision trees, random forests, linear programming problems. All these fall under prescriptive analysis. The last type of analysis that is available is artificial intelligence based analysis, called as cognitive analysis. The last one is cognitive analysis. What is cognitive analysis? It seems you and me are not needed in order to take any decisions any longer. Rather, the machine is going to do that. So there is a replacement of a human being by a machine, and that would suggest the alternatives and whichever is the best course of action, that also will be inculcated into the business environment. So here, what are all the analysis, whatever analysis we carry out under the gamut of machine learning, deep learning, all these fall under cognitive analysis. Right. This is in short about analysis. Yes, exactly. Exactly, Ramya ma'am. These are the 5 techniques, and it is only the transformation of your descriptive and inferential statistics with updating themselves to the modern technology. Right, you are right. Right. Have I made sense till here? If you permit me, if you have no further doubts, I'll continue. Otherwise, I can pause a minute and then take your queries. Okay. You can repeat the tools for prescriptive analysis. I would do so. Right. Perfect. Perfect. For that, I would just need access to my whiteboard. With your permission, I'll quickly go to my whiteboard. Right. Okay. Maybe I'll give you more clearer view about it. Okay. We have okay. Okay. Basically, I have money with me. Okay. Just try to look at this business scenario. I have assumed that Ravi has, let's say Ravi, okay? Mr. Ravi has 50 lakh rupees with him now, okay? And he's just trying to understand what should he do with his 50 lakhs. Okay, what are the alternatives that are suggested to him by the prescriptive models is, one, you make no investment at all. Ravi is suggested not to make any investment at all. The second one is, Ravi is advised to make an investment in real estate. Okay. The third is the case is, Ravi is recommended to make an investment in stock markets. Okay. There are 3 actions or decision alternatives that are given. 1, no investment to be made. 2, make an investment in real estate. 3, make an investment in stock market. Then immediately Ravi asks you and me, because we are data scientists, Please, can you tell me how much profit am I going to make? Then immediately you will have to go for further action, further study. What is it? Market will be good, market will be bad. Good market will be referred to as favorable markets. Good market will be referred to as favorable market. Bad market will be referred to as unfavorable market. If the market is going to be good and Ravi is making no investment, how much money is he going to still possess? 50 lakhs. It is unfavorable. He has not made any no investment. So he will have his amount as it is lying in his bank account. Now let us look at the second case. The second decision is you invest in real estate and the market is going to be favorable. If the market is favorable and you invest 50 lakhs in real estate, he will be getting 1 crore. That means he will have a profit of 50 lakhs. Okay. If the market is unfavorable, instead of 40 lakhs, how much will he be remaining with? He will be remaining with, instead of 50 lakhs, he will only have 40 lakhs. That means there is a loss of 10 lakhs here and a profit of 50 lakhs in the previous case. Now please look at the stock market case. He is going to have 75 lakhs, and if the market is unfavorable, he will be having only 30 lakhs. Means how much is the profit in this case? Can you please tell me? 25 lakhs here, and how much is the loss that he is going to incur here? 20 lakhs. Okay, now looking at this scenario, can you suggest Ravi what should he be doing? Can you suggest Ravi what should he be doing with rupees 50 lakhs? I will just serve this entire business scenario to a prescriptive model referred to as decision analysis. Then decision analysis, given the business scenario, will give me the best solution. Okay, assume that decision analysis uses optimistic method. Assume that decision analysis, there is one method called as optimistic method. If it uses optimistic method, what does it suggest? It seems, Ravi, please invest in real estate. How many rupees? 50 lakh rupees. Because the market is showing a favorable trend, you will gain, you will have a profit of 50 lakhs. Okay, so if you want this suggestion to be made, whatever analysis that you have discussed till now, they will not hold good. Rather, you go for a new method of analysis called as prescriptive analysis. That's exactly what I was referring to. Have I answered your question? Sharif Saab, have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Can you repeat cognitive analysis? I will do that. Madam, trend analysis is of predictive nature. Yes, exactly it is. Would it be possible to share inputs on cognitive analytics and how SPSS can help? Yeah, sure. Definitely, I would do that. Right. And now quickly, let me tell you what is cognitive analysis. Before I talk about cognitive analysis, let me give you a quick scenario, and then probably that would be helpful for you to understand the method. In cognitive analysis, what we do is, you have an open, you have entered a restaurant and or rather you have this special designed door in your college as well. You are entering into your college, you see that there are automatic doors at the entrance. The door, when you enter into the room, automatically opens for anyone, as a matter of fact. And after you have left the place, the door automatically closes. Is the door manned? No, it is not manned. Then how is it taking its decision of opening and closing? Because it is automated. Now, I'll give you one example, please. If you ask me, do you want to have, are you happy with the system? Then quickly my answer would be, no, I am not. Then your question is why? I have a simple answer for that. Assume that there is one person holding a AK, what is that? What gun do you call it as here? Some spurious
AK-47.
weapon. AK-47. Thank you, Sushma. He's holding AK-47 in his hand and he's walking in. What will the automatic door do? It does not know that it is AK-47. Happily, it will open the door, and that particular person is into our campus, which may be a problem later, right? Because the automated system cannot think on its own. Had it been that it was a manned entrance, definitely the security guard might have realized the presence of AK-47 and he could have said, please stop, you are not permitted to enter into this campus. Okay, so henceforth, what we need to understand is we just want to replicate this automated machine with human intelligence, not replication of activity alone. It should also replicate the human reasoning. If you want the machine to do so, you should be providing the machine with the cognitive ability skill currently what a human being does. If the machine possesses that, then the machine is referred to as artificial intelligence system. Now, how does the machine react? It undertakes some analysis in order to take a decision that a person holding AK-47 should not be allowed. The analysis that the machine undertakes is referred to as cognitive analysis. Have I answered your query? Perfect, right. That's it for types of analysis. Do we continue, Shweta madam, or do you think we should pause for a break?
Yes, ma'am. We'll pause for
Okay,
a break.
madam,
for
again,
10
when will we
minutes.
start?
11:40.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you, madam.
All the participants, the attendance link will be shared. Please fill the attendance link.